everyone. Welcome to the SMACC session of our fourth AfA Connect, and my name is Winaya, and I will be your host and moderator for today. So we are thrilled to bring you the final SMACC AfA Connect session of the year. In previous session, we've introduced experts who have highlighted the importance of addressing online animal cruelty and how it is deeply linked to the illegal wildlife trade. We've also had experts share their experiences investigating and apprehending perpetrators of these abuse-related scenes. So today we are excited to explore with you how we can advocate for online platforms to take more decisive action against animal cruelty. Next, please. So the Social Media Animal Cruelty Coalition, one of the Asia for Animals working groups, has grown to include 29 member organizations, and we continue to expand. Next. Before we proceed, we would like to kindly ask for 2 minutes of your time to fill out this brief survey. Please share your understanding and experiences with online animal cruelty. This is a year-long survey, actually, that we've been conducting since the end of 2023, and it will close at the end of this year. And to kick off today's session, let's first review what exactly constitutes as online animal cruelty, and we will then discuss what SMACC and our members are doing to address this issue on social media platforms and highlight our achievements over the past 4 years. And please be advised that some of the images and topics discussed may be distressing. So what is the issue? SMACC defines it as a range of human behaviors performed intentionally or unintentionally that cause animals harm or suffering, which may be immediate or long-term, physical or psychological. And online animal cruelty is not always easily identifiable. While content depicting physical torture is obviously cruel, but what about videos of primates dressed in costumes, lion cubs sitting in a sports car, or lambs rescued after being strangled by a snake? These are cruelty content that have less apparent signs of abuse, and the cruelty in this content may not always be visible, but it exists beyond the videos shared on social media platforms. And the theme of online animal cruelty has expanded its variety to the point that even people cannot begin to differentiate which one is cruel, and social media platforms might not have the needed information to regulate this type of content. Next, please. So this is where SMACC steps in. Next. Together with our members, we continue to raise awareness about this issue, and the data we've collected has been instrumental in helping us understand the current state of animal-related content online. And this data plays a key role in our ability to produce valuable reports, enabling us to engage with various stakeholders, including social media platforms. And as the central point of contact, SMACC also unites diverse voices and foster collaborations. And through our holistic approach, we collaborate not only with animal protection organizations, but also with the public, collecting data and providing advice on online animal cruelty. And also, SMACC is the only coalition dedicated exclusively to this issue. Next, please. But the strength of SMACC lies in what sets us apart, which is our ongoing engagement with social media platforms. SMACC unites different voices and advocates for our cause as a whole when approaching social media platforms. And as a united entity, we aim to maintain continuous communication with social media platforms, discussing how we can improve the situation and supporting their efforts to combat online. We are also working to initiate dialogue with platforms we have yet to engage with. Next, please. So in our approach, we believe in the importance of strategizing before approaching them. It's crucial to understand the platform's operations to determine the best approach for building a relationship with them. And to bolster our credibility, we present any relevant data that we have collected. As animal protection organizations, we want our voices to be heard. So it's important to provide platforms with clear asks that represent the interests of our members. And at the same time, we must maintain positive relationship with these platforms. And to do so, we keep them informed about our work, We recognize the positive changes they've made and actively offer opportunities for collaborations that benefit both parties. And lastly, we must, however, this does not prevent us from applying pressure on these companies or holding them to account when they continue to allow animal cruelty on their platforms. And lastly, we must carry out our task in the best possible way as we not only represent the brand SMACC, but also 29 members that are working for the same cause. And we also act as a bridge between multiple organizations and also social media platforms. Next, please. So over the past 4 years, we've communicated with several social media platforms, not only raising awareness, but also making recommendations for changes. While the impact of our work may not be immediately visible, we are already seeing signs of change and are confident that will continue in the long term. Next, please. So with TikTok, we are now a part of the Trusted Flagger program, and this means that we can report content via a direct channel to TikTok moderators, ensuring animal cruelty content is being reviewed and ideally removed swiftly. Next. SMACC also assisted TikTok in the creation of animal welfare page on their safety center, and this is the first of its kind on any major platform, and this demonstrates the growing acceptance that animal cruelty is a problem. This hub provides users with general information on identifying cruelty content, and they have also included our website, the SMACC website, so users can be directed to SMACC to know more detailed information about the issue. And the page is available in English, but also is available on other 43 languages. Next, please. And through SMACC, TikTok has also been collaborating with other animal protection organizations. For example, they have provided users with contact details for WTG, which is one of our members, as the go-to organizations for animal protection in Germany. Next. The second platform would be YouTube. Our relationship with them has been steadily growing over the past few months. We are also part of the Trusted Flagger program and are already seeing positive results. For example, most recently, we highlighted a channel that shared content of monkeys being hunted and killed. And this was removed a month ago after direct flagging from SMACC as the content violated YouTube's violent or graphic content policy. Next. And we have also maintained ongoing communication with Meta, who owns Facebook, Instagram, and the newest one, Threads. And in 2023, Meta implemented a new policy on fake rescue. And after intensive flagging from SMACC, they took action to remove a horrific cruelty trend involving cats from the platform. Next, please. However, not all of this progress has been made through conversations alone. In some cases, SMACC and our members have had to escalate our approach to push the platforms to make changes. So these are the tactics that we have done. So appeal letters via the AfA network. We also include contacts to senior staff as well. We include press departments of the social media platforms involved. And of course, some of the SMACC members have petitions to platforms with signatures of thousands, which have been presented directly at the platform's office, and this had happened with Meta. And then competition between platforms has also been utilized as we have made achievements with some platforms, so we are able to share that information to the other platforms. And all the while, SMACC has maintained an invitation for open dialogue and willingness to support the platform in making changes. Next. So approaching and maintaining relationship with stakeholders that have very different missions from ours is very challenging, especially when the changes we advocate for are not always easily accepted. And it's not only about how we can make the life of animals for the better, but it's also about how we can alter the platform's mind to see that these changes will also alleviate the user's well-being, knowledge, and safety. And we are very eager to continue refining our strategies, and expert advices and case studies will strengthen our approach. So this session will not only benefit those of you who are watching, but it will also provide valuable insights to SMACC as a coalition. We are excited to dive into this topic and learn more about the things that our experts have done. So coming up next, our amazing speakers, Frank Kembuan, Corporate Engagement Manager from the Act for Farm Animals, a partnership between Synergia Animals and Animal Friends Jogja. So he will share his expertise on reaching out to companies to pursue meaningful changes. His work primarily focuses on cage-free eggs, but his experience in engaging with large corporations will offer valuable insights into how to communicate with profit-oriented companies. And our second speaker, Eugénie Pimont, Wildlife Cybercrime Officer at IFAW. She will provide a real-life examples of how animal protection organizations can collaborate with social media platforms. She will offer us insights from IFAW's long-standing efforts to tackle illegal wildlife trade alongside social media platforms. Next, please. Audience are welcome to ask questions to the speakers. Please kindly put them in the chat box and our colleagues will ensure that a question will be put on the list. Next. Another reminder that some of the images and topics addressed in the session might be distressing for you. Next. Our first speaker will be Frank and followed by Eugénie, and then we will continue with a 30 minutes long Q&A panel. So let us just start with the first speaker, Frank, the floor is yours.
Hi, thank you, Winaya. Hi, everyone. I would like again to extend my gratitude for AFA for giving me the opportunity to be here with you today. I hope that my presentation and the work that I've been doing as engagement manager in Indonesia will not only inform you, but also inspire those of you who are interested in pursuing a similar path. So without further ado, let's dive into it. Could you move to the next slide, please? So like Winaya has said, that Act for Farm Animals is a coalition between Synergia Animal and Animal Friends Jogja. Synergia Animal, we are an international animal protection NGO dedicated to reducing the suffering of farm animals and promoting more compassionate food choices in the global south. Specifically, we achieved this by encouraging key market players to adopt cage-free policies and also work with institutions to implement plant-based diets. And we are a member of the Open Wing Alliance, which includes over 100 organizations in more than 70 countries. We have also been recognized as one of the world's most effective NGOs by animal charity evaluators for 6 consecutive years. Next, please. Okay, so why do we focus on battery cages in Asia? There are basically two reasons. We focused on cage-free policies in Asia and the global South countries. Cage-free policies are usually neglected in this area, in this region particularly. And the second reason would be very few organizations are working on this issue at the moment. And we really would like to change that. Next slide, please. So as most of you have already known, battery cages is one of the cruelest systems in the animal agriculture industry. And Asia is the world's biggest egg producer and exporter. And the number presented on this slide is just from 3 countries where we are focusing on. And as you can see, the number is already very huge. Sadly, the majority of these hens are still kept in the cruelest practice we know as battery cages. And so, as corporate engagement manager, what we do is when we discuss these issues with companies, we must often provide clear scientific evidence to support our stance, to discuss why we should reject the use of battery cages for hens. Um, Basically, what we presented to the public and to the companies, uh, first of all, cram cages. It's smaller than an iPad. The sizes for these hens, and usually they are cramped in one cages between 7 to 12 hens. Uh, the limited space also prevents hens from expressing their natural behaviors, such as fully spreading their wings or nesting when they lay eggs, etc. Additionally, hens cannot dust or dust bathe, which is crucial for removing parasites from their feathers. Furthermore, the conditions in battery cages are horrible. The hens' own manure piles up beneath the cages, so thus creating unsanitary conditions. So, sadly, many of them do not survive this harsh condition, and uh, sometimes the corpses are left alongside living hens. So for this reason, it is crucial to oppose the use of battery cages. That's why we encourage companies to switch to cage-free eggs. So the need to understand corporate engagement work is basically quite crucial in our work. Um, we initially reach out to food companies to convince them to source 100% cage-free eggs. And at this point, we have to choose which companies to approach and how we contact them. The choice of companies depends on the organization's mission. As such, at Synergy Animal, we focused on leading food companies in the market, like restaurants, cafes, food manufacturers company, because they use large numbers of eggs in their supply chain. Another point you might also have to think about is we also have to reach out to egg producers or suppliers to encourage them uh, to transition or switch to cage-free production. However, without enough demand from big companies, producers are unlikely to make the switch. That's why, in order to create the demand, we initially persuade food companies to lead the way in sourcing cage-free eggs. Next slide, please. So, how do we find the right people to start the engagement or the outreach? Um, Usually, when we target big companies that has many locations, such as in Indonesia or Thailand or Malaysia, how do we get contacts of key people, especially those on the management team, and basically where do we start? So, next slide, please. So when we first thing try to do research, we basically do a lot of online research as much as possible, checking the websites of each of the companies and their social media pages, such as LinkedIn, which is uh, crucial for our work. And from there, the information that we'll be looking at will be on the next slide. Oh, sorry. First of all, basically, these are the global commitments and the commitments that we managed to achieve so far in Indonesia. As of August 2024, globally, there are around 2,600 corporate cage-free policies that have been secured, and that includes around 95 of them that are operating in Indonesia. Um, So on the next slide, what you need to know before reaching out, the key points that you need to consider is to, again, conduct investigative work. Like I previously mentioned, look into the company structure, such as if it's publicly traded, is it part of a global corporation or a national company? Does it have transparency in their annual reports? So understanding these details will give you clearer picture of the company. And the second one would be identify the key contacts, find the right people to connect with, look for members of the board of directors, CEOs, the directors of supply chain, people in the public relation department, marketing or sales department. Focus on connecting with those at the managerial level and above because they are basically have a high decision making process, and also assess their presence, their public presence. Uh, we have to see how visible the company is in the public eye. Are they actively engaging with their consumers or clients? Do they have strong social media presence, and so on? And the fourth one would be to review their mission and policies, research their mission statements, policies, public directions, etc. This insight will guide you on how to engage and communicate with them effectively. Next slide, please. So how to find the right people to start the outreach? The other thing that we should not ignore is the social media, because it also has helped us tremendously to see what the company has been up to lately and if they've made any changes like positions, policies, opening locations, or what have gotten any viral that we could pick up that can be useful for our engagement. So by taking this approach, I can connect with the company effectively. Next, please. So some of the methods or platforms that are useful to achieve like a very utmost effectiveness in engagement or outreach. The first one maybe would be Google. It's free, widely accessible. You can find a lot of public information on it. And also you can get information that are recent or in the past about the companies. It can be time consuming to find specific contact details, and sometimes the information might not be up to date or accurate. The second platform would be LinkedIn. It's a professional network with up-to-date profiles. However, not all contact details are free on LinkedIn. Maybe you might need to subscribe to a premium membership to reach out. And then the others would be like Lucia, Rocket Reach, and Hunter. Next, please. So basically, after completing our research with all the necessary information about the company, it's time to reach out. These are some straightforward, effective methods that we use to engage the companies, like emails, direct phone calls, call the headquarters or the main office, request to speak with the necessary individuals that you would like to engage with. Social media platforms, be it the companies or the employees' social media platforms such as LinkedIn, Instagram, or Facebook. Oftentimes, LinkedIn can be the most appropriate choice of all. And also instant messaging like WhatsApp, which is very commonly and widely used in Indonesia. Sending a direct message to your contact person can facilitate effective and immediate communication. Next, please. So basically, from this method, we aim to clarify our purpose, uh, clearly explain why we are contacting them, And then the second would be to secure presentation opportunity to present a very detailed presentation on cage-free policy initiative. And the third one would be to persuade and inviting company to join the initiative. So as an NGO, we would state clearly that we are here to help them and we won't charge for any services that occurs during the process. And finally, our main goal is to obtain a commitment, which is a cage-free policy commitment from these companies. Next, please. So this is just an example of engagement email that one of my colleagues has sent, basically stating who we are, the call to attention, example of the competitors that have committed, and then at the end of the email would be to call for their attention to join in with the initiative. It's basically, this is on the next slide would be to practice a lot on engaging with the company, doing a lot of research. On the next slide, please. So when you would like to practice on your own, basically you can work together with a partner or like a group of your colleagues, and then you can also assign yourselves to different scenarios, maybe spend 15 minutes with your team to work on the assigned scenarios or situation, and then you can offer each other feedbacks on how the response would be and on how you can improve them in the future. Next, please. So wrapping it up, basically, a small or big win is always a win for the hands. And corporate engagement remains a cornerstone to our organization's essence. And it is a tireless work, but we can do this together. So, and you are welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn, as on the next slide. Please reach out if you have any questions or if you like to connect. I'm very welcome to receive any feedbacks from everyone. And again, thank you.
Thank you so much, Frank. There's a lot of things that I actually don't know about corporate engagement, and this is very valuable for how we can, engage with social media platforms, especially with the new ones. But let's just talk about this later in the Q&A panel. I would like to give the floor to Eugénie right now, so the floor is yours.
Thank you, Winaya, and thanks, Frank, for your presentation. It was also very interesting, and thank you for inviting me to present today. Winaya already introduced me, but yeah, I am a wildlife cybercrime officer at IFAW, and I will give you a short introduction about IFAW before delving into how we engage with online platforms. So IFAW is the acronym for the International Fund for Animal Welfare. It is a global nonprofit that has 16 countries' offices, programs in more than 40 countries, and more than 300 employees around the world. And we thrive to help animals and people thrive together since 1969. And IFAW has two pillars in its program work: rescue, so rescuing individual animals, and conservation, which means safeguarding populations, but also preserving habitat and advocating for greater protections. And so one of IFAW's missions within our conservation work is to fight against wildlife crime. So Amanda, can you please go on to the next slide? Thank you. In our goal to combat wildlife crime, we have a global prevention strategy that consists in being active along the entire trade chain, which means that we aim to combat wildlife crime at source, in transit, and at the point of sale through law enforcement support and training, improved regulatory environments, and through a reduction in the consumption of wildlife. And being at every point of the chain of trades means that we have to be in the world's biggest marketplace, which is, as you know, the internet. So can you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. And so, yes, of course, as you know, the internet is a market without borders that is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And so this is a very perfect place, unfortunately, for wildlife cybercriminals to exploit the anonymity that is given to them to illegally trade endangered and protected wild animals and their derived products. And so at IFAW, our specific goal within our cybercrime work, or our work against cybercrime, is to disrupt wildlife cybercriminal networks and, or to be more precise, to disrupt the ability of criminals to use the internet for the trafficking of wildlife. And next slide, please. Thank you. So to do that, we have a holistic cross-sector approach at the global, regional, and national levels. So we combine a bit of everything. So first, as you can see in the list, we do research. So we monitor and document cases, trends, and patterns of illegal wildlife trade online, which means concretely that we spend time monitoring online platforms. And when I say online platforms, it includes social media platforms, but also, and mostly e-commerce platforms, but also search engines operating in many countries. And we collect information on what we find, and then we share it with relevant stakeholders, including those platforms. Sometimes we also share our results publicly in some reports that we publish on our website. Another action that we do is that we try to ensure that there is the political will to tackle this problem and encourage governments to adapt their laws, which is, of course, not always easy, but is important. We also support law enforcers and judicial forces, mostly by building their capacity through trainings, but not only. We also try to understand and influence consumer attitudes in order to reduce demand for wild animal products, because, of course, even if you try to reduce the offer, if the demand is still here, the root of the problem is still here. And of course, we partner with the private sector, including the online platform companies that we're going to talk about today. And like the SMACC, we also act as a convener between all these stakeholders to bring together governments, platforms, NGOs, law enforcement agencies, and maybe even other stakeholders to maximize the resources and impact of this global fight. Thank you. For the next slide. And so one thing to take into consideration for what I'm going to say after is that we've been fighting wildlife cybercrime for over 20 years now in more than 25 countries around the globe. And through that long-term work, we have built our niche, expertise, and credibility. Even if, unfortunately, there are still lots of endangered species threatened by wildlife cybercrime, we have succeeded in putting cybercrime, wildlife cybercrime, on the conservation agenda and contributed to the removal of millions of illegal advertisements for wildlife specimens online. And we were the first NGO to target online platforms in terms of fighting against wildlife cybercrime specifically, to ensure that they join us in these fights by, for example, adopting what we call wildlife-friendly policies, improving their moderation system, and fighting against this issue at large. So you can go on to the next slide, please. Thank you. So now that I've said that, I can go into a bit deeper into how do we exactly work with this online platform, how do we convince them to take action, how do we strategically engage with them. Actually, a few of the things that Winaya and Frank have mentioned are very similar to what we do, as we're going to see. Next slide, please. Thank you. So we have two main approaches that are both different but also complementary. It's not so formalized in our work that we have to follow these two approaches. It's more what I've observed looking back at what we have done so far. And I think we mostly do voluntary collaboration, but also policy and compliance. But I'm going to spend more time on voluntary collaboration since that's what we do the most. So in terms of engaging with online platforms, our main way to proceed is to try to build trust with platforms instead of using a naming and shaming approach. We've been engaging with companies this way for almost 2 decades, as I've said earlier. And so this is really a long-term commitment where we try to prioritize positive long-term relationships. So, for example, before, personally, I was working for another NGO which in a totally different field, Reporters Without Borders, that you might know, defending press freedom. And this NGO is quite effective in its communication work by using the naming and shaming approach, which has proved useful in some cases with this NGO. But in our case at IFAW, for defending wildlife cybercrime, it is a totally different approach. So I'm not saying that it is what would work in any case with the online platforms, even in our field, but for us, that is what we have found works, and that's what we are prioritizing. But of course, not every platform accepts to collaborate with us. So we use this approach with the ones that are cooperative in the first place. And we can use the second approach with the other ones, but that I'm going to talk about later. So our method is simple. We usually start by listening to companies. We try to understand their constraints, their challenges, their goals, and this helps us come up with solutions that are tailored to each platform's specific needs instead of a one-size-fits-all message, because of course, from TikTok to Baidu in China or to the French classified ads company Le Bon Coin, the way these platforms function are very different. So the way they can adapt their moderation efforts will be very different. So the expertise and resources we can bring will also be different. And usually we start engaging with these platforms by trying to first monitor what's happening online on their platform. And if we see significant amounts of illegal wildlife advertisements on their platform, we try not to immediately share that information publicly. That doesn't mean we won't share it at some points, but we will try to share it first confidentially with them, so that they can see us as a reliable partner and acting in a constructive way. And of course, like Frank has highlighted, finding the right contact is crucial. So we try to connect with a high-level point of contact who can make decisions, because of course this makes collaboration smoother and more effective. And one challenge that we've been facing that I'm sure the SMACC is very aware of is that the turnover is always a challenge, and there were lots of layoffs also in the recent years in some very big tech companies like Meta. So this makes it very difficult to ensure continuity. So one additional thing that you can do, that we try to do in addition to targeting the right point of contact, is to build connections with multiple people on the team or even within different teams to ensure continuity. Because of course, otherwise you have to rebuild everything again. But I do want to emphasize the fact that it could also be a good thing sometimes when there is turnover, because a new person can be more susceptible and more receptive to your message, and then collaboration can be even more efficient. Thank you for changing the slide. In addition, the way we do this voluntary collaboration, we usually try to start with small steps. So, for example, with our partner, the French classified ads company Le Bon Coin, which is a place where you can buy secondhand couches if you're moving in a new place, for example. But unfortunately, even now, although way less than before, you could still find some products made from ivory that are not supposed to be there within just a few clicks. So we started over 10 years ago by conducting research and actually collecting data and preparing a report to show them what's happening on their platform, and help them understand the scale of the problem through our research. And so first, they just became aware of that problem. Then they gradually started to take steps. So, for example, they began removing content, and then they adopted a more proactive role by adopting stricter policies, for example, by adopting an ivory ban. And even last year, they adopted an ivory lookalike ban, which means that any product that looks like ivory, even if it's not ivory, is prohibited to be sold on their platform, which we believe is a really good thing, because it creates way less confusion and less risk to have ivory laundered on their platform. And it's also a positive thing for them, because it's less work for their moderation teams. They don't have to check every advert and contact us to check with an ivory expert. Is it real ivory? Is it not? It just gives them less work. And as we know, in this kind of collaboration, the root of the engagement from the companies is the resources. So if we can help them optimizing this work by using less resources, it really optimizes our collaboration. Of course, this type of blanket bans, like the ivory lookalike ban, or strict policies, don't work on every platform. It really depends on how they work, but we always assess what's feasible, and we offer, or we recommend solutions that fit the company's operations. And it's an interesting thing, this ivory lookalike ban, because and it's a big advantage of this voluntary approach. is that we can often push for ambitious actions that go beyond just what the law requires, because banning ivory lookalike products is not something that the law requires in France, but this company has decided to take this approach. So it shows that when you're not trying to just act based on the law, you can go even further than what the law requires. And it's good because, unfortunately, the law is not yet protective enough in terms of wildlife cybercrime. Of course, this approach is time-consuming because, as I've mentioned, it's the result of a long-term collaboration, but it's effective in creating lasting change. Another thing to add is that some companies, of course, are more open to collaborating than others, and each company has its own preferences. Some prefer confidentiality, some are open to informal exchanges, some want to have formal agreements. So, of course, if we can collaborate while keeping our goal together, we will try to adapt as much as we can to their preferred communication style and other preferences. And last but not least, as you might have heard, we have created with WWF and Traffic a coalition to end wildlife trafficking online, which we convene with those two NGOs, and it gathers over 50 platforms from 40 companies as members. And the idea is that through this coalition, the companies adopt an action plan that is specific for them. And so they follow this action plan, and this action plan basically consists in improving their efforts to fight against wildlife cybercrime on their platform. So, for example, by adopting wildlife-friendly policies, integrating the keywords that we have noticed are used by the traders online in their algorithm so that they can better detect the illegal adverts on their platform, and so on. And one of the biggest added value of this coalition is that we gather all the platforms together, even if they are from different regions, even if they are
Hello, Eugénie.
yes.
Sorry to interrupt, but you have only 1 minute left.
Yeah, okay, I will try to go fast. Thank you.
Thank you.
And so the biggest added value for this approach is that platforms can share the best practices and solution, and it really creates momentum for them to take action. So can you please go to actually, I will skip this one if I don't have much time. Thank you. And the last thing that I will mention is that in addition to this voluntary collaboration, we also try, as I mentioned, to work on the policy and compliance. So basically that means that we advocate for international and national legal frameworks that tackle wildlife cybercrime. So not only for legislation that tackles wildlife cybercrime, but also non-specific wildlife cybercrime legislation. So, for example, a legislation that regulates the online markets, but where we could also bring our voice and include wording around wildlife cybercrime. And can you please go on to the next slide? Thank you. And so, for example, we have contributed to the inclusion of the illegal trade of animals as an example of illegal content that companies should fight against, in a new regulation that was adopted and fully implemented since this year in February in the European Union, the Digital Services Act. And this new regulation, even though it's only in the EU, you can contact me later if you want more information, but it's a real game changer because it makes platform accountable for the content that they host on their platforms. once they are notified of their presence. And if something is illegal offline in the EU, it also becomes illegal online with this regulation. So it's a real game changer. And we will try to use it also to help us with the companies that have been less cooperative. Okay, I know I have talked a bit more than what I was supposed to do, so I will stop right now. But of course, I will be happy to answer any questions and to be reached out at even after the end of this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eugénie. I am very happy that you said a lot of our work with Frank's work as well. We kind of have an overlap over there when it comes to engaging with stakeholders. So I'm very grateful to have you both here as speakers. Okay, so now we're at the Q&A panel. I do have a few questions first for Frank. I think it's more on how, when it comes to public outreach and corporate outreach, which one do you think is much more important, or are they equally important for you?
Thank you for the question, Winaya. If we look at the situation and the environment specific to each country, it's they vary differently. So I can only talk about what we've been experiencing in Indonesia. At the moment, since the cage-free initiative is still not quite familiar to the public, it is very important to reach out initially to companies, because they do have quite a big public presence, if you could say that, in Indonesia. So it is important to start from them, and then after initial connection with them, then we would do in tandem a lot of public outreach, as well as a few government outreach, if you could say that, in order to get the issue known hand in hand with many different facets in the country.
I'm so sorry, I forgot to ask you guys to turn on your videos. It feels like I'm talking to a wall. But yeah, so thank you so much, and also Eugénie as well, if you could. So for the next question, I think this would be one of the biggest questions that I have, actually. For both Frank and Eugénie, how do you measure success when working with big corporations? Do you look at things like policy changes, shift in people behavior, or funding for animal welfare projects?
I guess I would say that for me, it would be a big leap to initially see that companies that we approach, they understand the issue of better animal welfare, specifically in farm animals, in laying hens. When we manage to get them to understand the importance of the issue, it makes our work not so much easier, but a little bit better to achieve the goal in getting a cage-free policy commitment. So I don't know if that answers your question. Maybe Eugénie have a different
Of course.
perspective.
This question will be directed to both of you, but it's quite different with the actually the previous question that I have. It's more on the relationship with the POC, point of contact. So I'm just not quite sure how genuine a relationship can be with them and whether if this genuine relationship can be beneficial for our work or maybe it's probably better to have a strictly business kind of relationship. So what does Frank think? And then we can continue to Eugénie.
This is very contemplating to me because um, because for us, for me personally, when we working as a corporate engagement manager, I have to represent myself as quote unquote a good cop in a way. So uh, I have to be seen as approachable, open and understanding to the company's maybe quote unquote difficulties or challenges in order for them to switch or transition to cage free. But on the other hand, uh, gentle pressure is needed. Uh, but again, it is very challenging at the same time, also exciting for me because I have to tread lightly in order to achieve what I need from these companies. And so, even though uh, inside I would be very, you know, exasperated when I have to deal with them if they are being stubborn or being very adamant with their stance with like making big profits and whatever. But we have to try to make them understand that the initiative is important not just for the animal themselves, but also it's good for their public persona image and for their consumers at the end of the day. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Frank. How about Eugénie? I think since we have different kind of work, I think that it's quite different for you, probably.
Yeah, it's a very good question. First, I would say that there are, of course, relationships between organizations, I mean, between IFAW and maybe not the company itself, but the image of IFAW that is just beyond ourselves as an individual that we cannot control, but that we have to keep in mind. And in addition, the relationship with the point of contact, I would say it really depends on the person you engage with. So for example, we engage both with e-commerce platforms and social media platforms that are not at all focused on animal trade, but we also engage with some specialized platforms that really only or mostly do animal trade. And some of them are really in a way against us because we try to restrict what they're doing. But some of them are, or at least the person within them that we're engaging with, have interest themselves in defending animals and wildlife. So if they have this own interest within themselves, that's the best, because that's where it will be the most genuine and where you can get the most impact. I'm thinking, for example, of one company that we work with in Germany called Deine Tierwelt. Also, it helps because I think they are a smaller platform compared to the bigger ones that we've been talking about, like Meta. So yeah, I think it really depends on the person. And I think it can help also if within our own organizations, we are multiple people engaging within that same point of contact, not too many, maybe just two, because as Frank mentioned, there can be a good cop and a bad cop. Someone having the maybe more nice conversations and another person sending, the reminders, can you please send that? Can you please do that? These kind of exchanges. So yeah, it's a difficult question. I don't know if it helps.
Yeah, it's very helpful. I know that this kind of thing cannot be doesn't have a template response for everything. But I guess in this type of work that we do, it's quite different. Even for Frank's job and your job and my job is a bit different and difficult. So we need to find a way, like the best way for us to do what our mission is. And of course, unfortunately, Frank has had to leave just now because he I know he is in another summit. He's a very busy person, but I'm very thankful for him to give a few time for us. So there are going to be more questions for you, Eugénie, actually. But speaking about the previous questions, actually, I do find it difficult when I have to engage with a certain point of contact in different platforms. We do have different dynamics, and it's not really easy to how do I say this? Read what's in their mind, read what their response would be like, or probably they might have something that they kind of hide from us. And but at the same time, so we do the same thing as well, trying to protect our work and of course try to find the best way to communicate clearly, but in not in an offensive way. So the answers that you guys have actually are very beneficial for me. I know IFAW has been in this journey longer than we do. And for online animal cruelty, I think it will be much difficult because not all people see it as something serious. That is what we're trying to, communicate with the platforms. Not only platforms, but also the public as well. So my question, not yes, do you have anything to add?
Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to add that maybe because I completely understand what you just explained. I think it has not been my case yet, but some of my colleagues who are in touch with some of our of the POCs of the platforms we engage with have met them in person, and I think that can also help to really connect on a personal level, even if you're not becoming the best friends, but at least you can have an authenticity in the exchange. And yeah, I think that could help. Even though I'm sure it's not always possible. But sorry, you were gonna ask a question.
No, actually, that is a good point because that is something that I wanted to ask to both you and Frank. I know that Frank, since he is in Indonesia, I would assume that he has more offline contact with them, while for you and IFAW, I think more on the online type of communication, which is similar to us. And I think that is the barrier that we cannot really, put aside. It's just not possible since we live in different parts of the world. So yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I think of course on a regular basis we mostly engage with them online, but IFAW has been organizing a few events where we try to involve and invite these representatives from these platforms, and not only from one platform, but from many different ones. So they have more incentives to join as well. So for example, I think in China it works well because the companies are very active. And that was actually another example. There was actually another example I had in my slides of an event that we had organized in 2018. So it's a bit old now, but it was a workshop that we co-organized with Interpol. And there was many participants, including from companies. So I think this can also, of course, it's not on a regular basis, but be a good incentive to be able to meet them in person. And also make sure they engage with other companies, even if there's no immediate outcome. It's just to create that environment and dynamic.
Well, that's very interesting. Do you guys have like, I think it wouldn't be in YouTube for me to watch, no? I think it's more an inclusive event in 2018.
Yes, that one was is already passed, but I can share other materials after this presentation to about what we do in terms of the events that we organize with the platforms. Absolutely.
Yes, please. Thank you. So I have my two last questions for you, but I want to know this one first. I think the most crucial one would be, what do you do when the platforms do not do what they say they will?
Yes, that's a very tricky question.
Mhm.
Well, there are some mechanisms that we are trying to put right now, but I can't really talk about it right now before it's publicly
Yes.
shared. But you can follow that in the coming weeks or months on the Coalition to End Wildlife Trafficking's website. We'll share a progress update on which we will explain our strategy for that. Of course, we try to not harass, of course, but reach out as much as we can. But if there's no response, or if there has been no response from the start, that's where we can start using the compliance-based work that I was referring to at the end of my presentation, but I was speaking for too long, so I didn't really finish. But it's something we have, if I am correct, used less because unfortunately there's not so much legislation we can count on for that. But the example that I gave, the Digital Services Act in the EU, is a great step in a better direction, because if we notify a platform that there is illegal content on its platform, and by the way, it's not only for wildlife cybercrime, it can be for a lot of different types of illegal content, they become aware of it, and after that they become responsible for it, so they have to either delete it or block the account of the trader. So it's a more aggressive way in a way, because, or a more neutral way, because we don't engage directly with someone from the company, but it will be a more distant process. But we'll see. It has been in place for a few months now, so it's very recent. But if it's implemented correctly, it could really scale up our efforts, and it really brings also a legislation framework that helps us with our work.
Thank you so much for that. I think my last question, that would be very beneficial for SMACC, is that do you have any advice for us to talk to social media platforms when it comes to online animal cruelty?
That's a very good question. Honestly, I think I need to think about it a little more. And because, as you know, we don't focus on animal cruelty. We do have some spontaneous requests from our donors to help them remove animal cruelty content online that they have sometimes already notified to some of the platforms, but that they see stay. But apart from that, I haven't really thought of that question thoroughly. I will think about it and let you know. Sorry if I don't come up with an idea right now, but I need to think about it.
Yeah, I know how different we do overlap, but like it's not really similar. But thank you so much for wanting to, get back to me with the advice.
No problem.
Yeah, that would be my last question. I'm very happy that I hope that the people who are watching right now get a lot of valuable insights, because I do get a lot of valuable insights from this. So yeah, so we are nearing the end of SMACC session. I would love to share a bit of my key takeaways, honestly, from the session, because it's been very valuable. I learned a lot about, knowing more about your platforms, whether they, Frank said about if they have a transparency report or not. That certainly show you the accountability, the type of accountability that platform can do. And of course, from Eugénie, I think the voluntary collaboration is actually something that is achievable, but we need more time and effort to have that kind of collaboration. Next. So for those of you who did not have the opportunity to fill this form earlier, please feel free to direct your phone camera to the screen right now, access the QR code, or you can fill out the form directly. I think my colleague will give you the link on the chat box. Next, please. And any feedback from you will help us to improve our AfA Connect event, or actually our upcoming events. We would be happy to know more about the aspect of the event that you think is very rewarding or needs a bit of improvement. Please leave your comments in the forum to help us evaluate the event that we provide for you. And we are excited to announce that the Asia for Animals will be holding our in-person event, AfA Conference in Taipei, next year, August 25 to 29. And also a few online events that you can attend or be involved in, such as International Macaque Week, World Rabies Day, and Asia Farm Animal Day. So for more information, you can visit our website, and you can also subscribe to our mailing list. Next, please. AfA Conference is also open now for abstract submission. Simply access the QR code or access the website link that my colleague has just put in the chat box. Next, please. We will also hold FAC regional events in India, February 8 to 9 next year, and a few more regional events that will be held in Indonesia, Nepal, and Pakistan. So don't forget to visit our events webpage or subscribe to our mailing list if you do not want to miss any updates. Next. So the Asia for Animals Coalition have grown a lot in the past few years, and one of our innovations is to bring you resources that are easily accessible anytime, anywhere, and that is why we give you the Asia for Animals podcast. SMACC has just released a podcast on fake animal rescue on social media as well, where we talk about the process of making the report, spotlight report, the summary of our findings, and how the public can help reducing the virality of the content. And of course, you will be able to listen to other episodes from all our working groups. Head to our podcast webpage to learn more about our episodes and intriguing speakers.